Welcome to Access Television. This episode is recorded days prior to voters going to the polls for the 2015 municipal election. In fact, today, November 9th, is the anniversary of the fall of the wall that divided East and West Germany. Auspicious?
Perhaps.
We shall see. Regardless of the outcome of the elections, our municipal mayors and council will be faced with figurative walls to break down and communicate through.
I like that. I like that. And we take a look at everything housing related, from availability and affordability to the need for community building and community services.
Stable housing for those most at risk is what we're going to focus on. Also, I'm excited to get in between the pages of Vancouver Confidential and look at the storied history of Vancouver with some of the authors of this new anthology.
This sounds very exciting. And also, do not miss our Unsung Heroes segment, which honors local individuals in our community who make a difference.
Well, our collective momentum, our collective awareness is gaining momentum, and we are all becoming aware of managing our resources.
Very important.
Both people and beyond, so that our next generations will be able to share in what we are so fortunate to have. It gives us purpose. I'm Molly Caron.
And I'm Samantha Reimer. Let's start off with one of the Lower Mainland's hottest topics right now, which is affordable housing.
Right, and specifically, Portland Hotel Society's Community Services has a new interim executive director, Ted Bruce. Sid Tan will be interviewing him. They will discuss the various opportunities and services that Portland Hotel Society is providing. Here they are now.
Hello and welcome to Access Community Television. My name is Sid Tan, and today we have with us Ted Bruce, former Executive Director of Population Health at Vancouver Coastal Health and currently the co-chair of the BC Poverty Reduction Coalition. Welcome to the show, Ted.
Thanks for having me, Sid.
Yeah. First, I have to ask you, you have now spent almost 6 months as Interim Executive Director of the Portland Hotel Society. My question is, why did you take the job under all the media controversy that was going on?
I get asked that a lot, and the main short reason is because I believe in what PHS does. It's an organization which really promotes what I believe in, which is trying to improve the health of the population, and it's a great place to be.
It does a lot of good work, and I know that between the time you took the job and now, you've just had a memberships meeting. What's your impressions then and now?
Well, I'd say when we first started, there was an awful lot of anxiety about the organization, essentially whether it could survive. There's lots of financial challenges that we have to face. There's the media challenges we had, etc. So I think there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety on the part of people who worked there, on the part of people that supported it. Now I think we've got a sense of comfort to a certain degree. There's more certainty. I think the staff are feeling more comfortable. The interim board that we have has, I think, done a great job of trying to show that they support PHS. Our major funders have certainly come to the table and said they want PHS to be successful. So I think all of that has brought a sense of comfort to many of the people that work with Portland, with PHS. And so it's kind of, I think, an opportunity now to kind of move forward from where we were.
What was, do you think, beyond getting all this together and getting the society back on track, and what was the biggest challenge, or what have you found to be surprising challenges that you have?
I think the biggest challenge is making sure that we can protect the culture of PHS. And the culture of PHS is one that is very non-judgmental about the people it deals with, and very, I guess, creative or innovative in the way it tries to meet some pretty big challenges in the community. There are ways that people think things should be done. You get lots of pressure from outside that think things should be in a certain box. And what PHS has always been able to do is be creative and innovative around what it's trying to do. So my biggest concern, and I think where our biggest risk still is, that we become too focused on just the survival and the financial situation that we're in, etc. So being sure that we can continue to be creative, continue to find innovative solutions is where we want to go. A good example is the supervised injection site. I mean, that was something that PHS initiated many years ago. It was creative, it was innovative, and highly successful. And what we want to make sure is that we're always on that cutting edge. And that's kind of the biggest challenge I think we still have in front of us.
Well, PHS, Community Services Society, is very well known for the safe injection site. In fact, North America's first safe injection site, as I understand, and currently the only one. But PHS does so much more than that, and I'm just wondering if you can give us a little example of the length and breadth of the kind of work PHS does.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest surprises I had when I came into the organization is how expansive it is, the range of things that we do. So if you think about it, we provide housing for some of the most at-risk people. We have between 800 and 1,000 units of residences that we provide for people. It's a big operation that way. About 17 buildings that are providing housing. We have integrated into that all kinds of different services. We have food service provision in them. We have healthcare service provision in them as well. We operate a full primary healthcare clinic. We operate a community center for people who are suffering from addictions right in the community. We have a number of co-managed health services we provide with Vancouver Coastal Health. So it's a huge scope of work that we do. And the interesting thing, I think, when you think about Portland, PHS Community Services Society, is that we start right from the shelter level, where people are just closest to homelessness and on the street, putting them into a shelter, through to stabilizing them into some residential housing, getting them more stabilized into permanent housing, and now we even provide some support for people who are moving into supportive housing and into market housing. So it's that full range that we're doing there. And the goal of PHS in the way it provides its services is to integrate the services. So it's not just a housing provider. We're making sure that as people require other services, they get them. Because that's what reduces the chaos in someone's life. Someone who's been living on the street, coming into housing for the first time, they've lived in a very chaotic environment. So it's helping them stabilize, it's giving them what they need, and then helping them move into a more stable lifestyle.
That seems like a lot of tremendous work that's going on. And I just want to ask you, we're going to have to go pretty soon, but are there something about PHS Community Services Society that you would like to say that I haven't covered in the questions?
Yeah, no, I think one of the things that you did cover a little bit is the degree to which it's non-judgmental, and that it is there for folks that it serves. It really doesn't put barriers in front of people. It tries to walk with them. It tries to work with them. And that's, I think, the foundation of the culture of PHS.
Then what would you want to say to people that are out there beyond that it's non-judgmental and how they can perceive PHS Community Services Society?
Well, I think, the thing I would say to people is that you need to understand that a lot of what we experience and deal with through PHS is a result of poverty. A lot of trauma in people's lives that are associated with poverty. So the more that people in the community can raise awareness about the need to address poverty, I think the more important things will be addressed. The issue for me and working with the Poverty Reduction Coalition, for example, is first and foremost to try to get welfare rates raised. These are some of the fundamental policies that need to change so that the work of PHS is simpler to do, and that we don't have kind of this inflow of people that require the types of services that PHS provides.
Ted, we have to go now, and we'd like to have you back on later, talk a little bit about your motivations and things like this, but you've done a really good service for letting people know what PHS does. And thank you for being with us. We have to go now.
Thanks, Sid. Nice to be here.
Yeah. We've been with Ted Bruce, the Interim Executive Director of Portland Hotel Services Society, PHS Community Services. It's been a terrific understanding for me of learning it, and I hope you have too. My name is Sid Tan with Access Community Television. Until we meet again, straight shooting and tight edits.
Well, the PHS Community Services has been providing advocacy, housing services, and employment opportunities since 1993 in our community, and I've noticed.
As have I. And up next, we've got Hot Topics with Gunargie.
Hello, Welcome to Access TV, and we have some hot topics to talk about. Molly, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been volunteering on Co-op Radio through the membership drive, which was a huge success.
Yeah, it was. The fall membership drive is always a blast. And if you haven't donated, you can still donate by going to www.coopradio.org and hit that donate button.
And now you've met a lot of new faces and voices on the radio. Tell us
I sure
who's
have.
inspired you this month.
Well, this month, Nikki Larocque, who's a fashion designer, called me all the way from Chilliwack. And what she does is vintage clothing, and then you can bring in your own clothing, and she will put a design on it, depending on what it is you want, whether you want an eagle, a whale, you know, Thunderbird. She can do it. Little elements on the sleeves and everything. She just bumps everything up.
And she does hair as well?
She does hair, yeah. She does this, she has a shop called Chop Shop. And what it is she shaves parts of your hair and then she puts native designs in it, like Slavic designs or like West Coast designs. It's awesome.
With a very small buzzer as her brush.
Yeah, I guess so.
Very
I'm not quite sure how she does it. She doesn't scalp you though, so it's safe.
Yeah. And also the Weimar Festival, the Vancouver Indigenous Media Arts Festival is coming up soon.
Up and coming.
I know Eugene Belanger has a film.
Yeah, right on.
It's about the Dene people. And it's called, what's it called?
Oh, Eugene, yeah. He has Dene, a journey back to the source. That's interesting, hey? And then the last Peyote Guardians, too, is also a film that will be shown there. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Weimar Film Festival.
Right.
You know, it's one of a kind. It's happening right here in Vancouver in our own backyard and encourages and promotes First Nations filmmakers. And we need that encouragement because we have people who are script writers, who are producers, actors. You know, they're extraordinary. Yeah.
And then there's a neo-Indigenous music versus modern music.
Yeah, it's actually called Neo-Nativist versus Contemporary Music. They're celebrating their 25th anniversary with founders Leonard Fisher, Russell Wallace, and Warren Arcand. And who they're adding to the mix this year in partnership is Pat Ernest and Lan Tung, as well as Michael Park. And it's going to be awesome because...
That's at the Western Front.
Yeah, they're going to mix it up. You know, they're collaborating and they're making new music together. Nothing like that.
It's very good.
Yeah.
And what else is happening with housing? I mean, this is always a hot topic.
Oh, yeah. Housing, eh? What about...
You're living in the Ray Cam Center. Weren't you?
No,
this isn't,
I don't live there.
I visit there a lot. I have friends living there.
Okay.
I'm looking for the story there because it's for sale.
Yeah.
BC Housing is putting it up for sale. That's a bit of a hot topic for me, and I don't know where to...
Well, Reimer, yeah. Well, what's happening there is that they are going to be selling it to private condo owners, but it isn't going to affect like the maintenance people, but the management are booted out. But the tenants can still continue to stay at the housing complex without their rent being affected or anything like that. Everything stays the same except for management.
Well, I just went to a show, it'll be over by the time this airs, but Raymur Mothers, which was an amazing musical about the solidarity between mothers in the 1970s who wanted their kids to get to school safely.
Yeah.
And sat down on the tracks until they built an overpass.
Really?
And it was just such a powerful piece of theater because it took history and put it onto the stage. And kids and were in the production. It was amazing.
Amazing.
Theater in the raw.
Yeah, well...
hopefully you saw it, but...
I heard all about it as it was in the making.
Yeah.
So it sounded exciting.
It's amazing when activism becomes art. Yeah.
It is, and that's what we explore all the time at Co-op Radio, you know, and community television. That's what it's all about, supporting our community and our friends and our family. Right here on Access TV. You and me, baby.
Reflecting the good stuff.
Yeah.
And fixing the bad stuff. Well, thanks, Gunargie.
Well, you're welcome.
It's always a good conversation.
The Vietnamese community is all about bringing the people together, which is why Little Saigon's latest passion project happens to involve the building of a senior center. Let's hear more.
Thưa quý vị, Nguyễn Hoàng Nam đang đi trên con đường Kinh Xuầy, là nơi tập trung rất nhiều những trung tâm cơ sở thương mại của người Việt Nam chúng ta tại vùng Vancouver. Nhưng có một điều đáng tiếc là trên con đường được mệnh danh là Little Saigon của người Việt Nam thì lại không có một trung tâm sinh hoạt cộng đồng nào dành cho người Việt chúng ta cả. Mà trên con đường này lại có đến 2-3 trung tâm được xây dựng của người nước ngoài. Và một lát nữa đây thì xin mời toàn thể quý vị cùng Hoàng Nam đi dạo một vòng, gặp gỡ những bà con Việt Nam của chúng ta đang sinh sống nơi đây để nghe những cái nguyện vọng hay những sự tâm tình của họ về một trung tâm sinh hoạt cộng đồng trong tương lai mà chúng ta có thể xây dựng tại vùng Vancouver, BC này quý vị nhé. Anh có nghĩ rằng là tại vùng Vancouver của chúng ta nên có một cái community center, một cái trung tâm văn hóa sinh hoạt cộng đồng cho người Việt không ạ?
Rất là cần thiết. Thực sự đó là một điều cần thiết và nó là một cái nhu cầu cần thiết và nó là thiết yếu cho cái cộng đồng người Việt ở phía bên Vancouver bên đây.
Tại vì cô nghĩ là những người già mà lớn tuổi lên đây ở đây thì cuối tuần hoặc là những cái lúc cháu rồi đi học á, thì cần có một cái nhỏ nhỏ như vậy để mà những ông già bà già và những cô chú còn ở không rỗi rảnh chứ không có làm gì đó thì lại sinh hoạt vui chơi.
Đó là of course, phải là tuy nhiên rồi, để tất nhiên phải có cái chuyện đó.
Dạ.
Ok.
Xin cảm ơn quý vị đã theo dõi chương trình và rất mong gặp lại quý vị trong những chương trình kế tiếp. Hoàng Nam, Ken Việt Media in Vancouver.
Well, Little Saigon is the area that runs from Windsor up to Knight, and it is a cultural mecca that I call home. We'll keep you posted on the fundraising that's going to make that community center happen and the senior center on Kingsway.
And speaking of the wise and elderly, here's a somewhat humorous segment from our Saltwater City Stories, starring our very own executive producer, Sid Tan, who actually participated in this month's civic election.
I got steel wires for guts. I got concrete in my bones. I got fire in my blood. I've been called a Navajo. I've been called Juan from Mexico. I've been called Carlo the Filipino. But my favorite is still Good Time Joe. That's why I'm known around the world. I can cook better, eat more, run faster, jump higher, love longer, sleep deeper, and yell and shout louder than anybody I know. I can act dumber too than anybody, with the exception of my Uncle Charlie's. That'd be Charlie Kwan and Charlie Chin, who I learned from. There's not a single person alive that can't make a fool out of me. That's how tough I am. I learned this myself. The hard way, of course. Hey, Sid!
Wow, Sid Tan is quite the wordsmith. You can see the entire Saltwater City Stories hour when we broadcast it here on Access TV during the holiday season. That was part of the Heart of the City Festival. And our next community story...
Aunt Leah's Place. They've been helping kids in foster care for the last 25 years. And Molly Caron has the heartwarming interview.
Hello again. I'm here with Paul Stewart and Angelina Oates, a couple of old friends that I met on a tree lot a few years back. And they're here today on Access Television to tell us about Aunt Leah's and what Aunt Leah's does for kids in care.
Aunt Leah's is a nonprofit organization that's been around for 25 years, and they work with foster youth in the Lower Mainland.
And why does Kid in Care need extra training and support?
Well, just like any youth, they're going to need support learning how to live on their own and getting life skills from, mainstream would get from their parents. We try to give them some key skills, some life skills, some training, some housing, so that when they turn 19, they can have some skills to make it on their own.
Right. I guess the life, sometimes being in an uncertain situation and being shifted from home to home, it's hard to have that feeling of a safety net or a family that's there for you, and Aunt Leah's has always sort of taken that role on as being somebody, a group of community that you can celebrate and eat with and celebrate holidays. And I liked that Aunt Leah's does these tree lots because you're giving kids an opportunity to volunteer, handle money, deal with the public. What else do they learn when they're doing the training on the tree lots?
Well, the tree lot training's your basic training for employment. So a lot of youth don't get a chance to get their foot in the door to even get experience or get a job. So we sign them up and they work for 5 weeks and they learn cash handling, customer service, sales, closing and opening procedures, anything that you would, at a retail job. Yeah. And it's really valuable for them because they learn in a kind of a safe area where they know they can, learn these experiences and grow.
That's right. And I guess, Paul, over to you. The trees that are the trees that I've learned as I volunteered there are plentiful and varying heights. Take us through what all the types of trees that you have.
Sure. We have 7 different kinds of Christmas trees. We have some high-end ones. They cost more. And the main significant thing about the higher-end trees is their needle retention. In other words, even if they dry out, they still retain their needles. They're beautiful, beautiful trees. You have something like the noble fir, which almost looks as nice as you would see in a Walt Disney cartoon. Just classic shape, blue-green colors and strong branches and excellent needle retention. Then we have other ones called a Fraser fir, which is a little bit more slender, but again, excellent needle retention. We have a Nordman. The unique thing about it is it's a gorgeous tree, but no smell, in case that's a factor with some people. But usually smell is important. Yeah. So most of the trees have a good smell. Another one is a grand fir, which has a citrus kind of a smell. People love it. Yeah. But it's a cheaper tree and the needle retention is not so good. And then we have other trees that are, there's an alpine. Alpine is a...
I like those.
Yeah. Alpine's beautiful smell. It's from the alpine area, the mountains in British Columbia. And it's a kind of a tree you would put candles on in a Scandinavian country. It's got strong branches and quite gappy and slender and tall.
So all these traditions that come back every year, these Christmas, the decorations and everything, they're just sort of a funny dance we all do. But really, it's family, and Christmas is about contributing and engaging with people, and I think that I want to talk a little bit about the people that I've met when I volunteer on a 4-hour shift on a tree lot has been eye-opening for me. For instance, a lot of the kids from the Burnaby School for the Deaf are out at that's a lot of fun working with them. How did they get involved with Leah's?
Well, the tree lots are celebrating their 20 years right now, so we have some people that have been volunteering for 20 years, and it's a tradition to them. They come back and they came with their children, and they come, all over the years, and their kids get older. Yeah. But we also have volunteers every year that are new, so they kind of mix together, and they just have the fun of selling Christmas trees and having the Christmas spirit. It's kind of...
And the Burnaby School for the Deaf is just another interested group that come?
Aunt Leah's partnerships with a lot what people in the Lower Mainland. I think that's how we are so successful.
Yeah, that's one of my highlights is working with them. What other ways can people find out about Aunt Leah's? There's the thrift store on Broadway near Maine, right?
Yeah, Aunt Leah's has always been really good at trying to look outside the box, and they've been doing social enterprises obviously for 20 plus years. But our newest adventure is Urban Thrift. It's an amazing little boutique thrift store on Broadway, where you get to go in there and find some nice treasures, and all the money goes back into the programs.
It's a great way to shop and repurpose. Well, I'm looking forward to some time on the tree lot, and thanks again, both of you, for all the work that you've done and continue to do. And I'm wishing everybody a happy time choosing their tree. It's also about the light that goes around the tree. For Access TV, I'm Molly Caron with Paul Stewart and Angelina Oates for Aunt Leah's Place. I'm here with Stevie Wilson and Jason Vanderhill. Stevie is an online journalist, and she has a degree in history from UBC. She publishes weekly on scoutmagazine.com. And Jason is a photographer and a historian. And they're both contributors to Vancouver Confidential, the latest anthology to come out from a collection of different perspectives. So we're going to get into the two perspectives that you bring to these stories. So Stevie, we'll go back to you. I'm going to start with Jason, because Jason, your story reaches far into the past. 1906, when Daniel Joseph Kennedy came to Vancouver, and he had impeccable timing, and he knew how to work the laws with liquor. So let's begin with him.
It's true. My story chronologically could even predate Vancouver if you go back to the birth of Daniel Joseph Kennedy. He's born around 1862, and he grew up as basically a traveling salesman selling liquor, and he winds his way across America, and around 1910 he actually comes to Saskatchewan and sets up a business, and he sets up a hotel in a small town, Shaunavon, Saskatchewan. He's one of the first in line to set up this boomtown in the prairies, and he came just on the cusp of prohibition in Saskatchewan. Yeah. So it seemed like terrible luck for him, but he found a way to work around the laws by bottling medicinal cures, so alcoholic products which could cure all your ailments.
So a fancy label made him big bucks.
It did make him quite famous, and he had, I'm sure, a local celebrity. The local paper was constantly writing about him. And when British Columbia follows in Saskatchewan's footsteps and implements their prohibition in 1917, Joseph Kennedy is one of the first to rush in and set up his business, a continuation of what he had started in Saskatchewan, and he sold his cures in British Columbia for the duration of our prohibition, and then following that, well into American prohibition.
Right. So he kind of morphed from medicines and remedies into cocktails.
It's true.
How did he do that?
Once the laws in British Columbia were repealed, once we no longer had it on the books, 1921, he changed his company name from Druggist Sundries Company Limited to Daniel Joseph Kennedy, or Joseph Kennedy Limited. And then he changed his products, and he was just out and out selling cocktails and bourbon, Manhattan, all sorts of pre-mixed drinks, which were very popular in America, I'm sure.
The Silk Hat set.
Yes.
Enjoyed them.
Yes, that was one of his fancy labels, Silk Hat brand cocktails.
So now tell us about your primary sources, from advertising to newspapers to the bottles themselves, and how did they inspire you to write this story?
It really is the only reason why I wrote the story, is because a friend of mine had the actual bottles, and that was tangible proof that, yes, this really did exist here in Vancouver. Right. And in telling my story, I did not have a single person that I could really interview to get that direct knowledge. So it all had to come from archives and census and newspapers and advertising.
And birth and death records.
Birth and death records.
That's what we call primary sources.
Okay.
And then you filled in the blanks, and then we have one of the great stories in this Vancouver Confidential. And now let's go over to you, Stevie, because we don't have much time. So you wrote about the hobo jungles.
Yeah.
And the title of your story again?
It's Where Men Live on Hope, the story of Vancouver's hobo jungles of 1931.
Well, where some men are still living on hope.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed your story too, because you discerned the difference between a tramp, a hobo, and a bum.
Yeah. Yep, there is a difference, and
a hobo has purpose?
A hobo is someone who lives and they're in search of work, and a tramp is someone who doesn't have work but isn't necessarily looking. So there's sort of, in the hobo lingo, in the sort of community that they'd created for themselves, there was a distinction between those who, through no fault of their own, had no work, but they were looking.
Right.
So.
And then there's the bums who don't travel.
They don't travel, they stay in one place, and they're, I guess, complacent, you would say.
Now, your sources that you drew on to write your story, were they hard to dig up? Or how did you go about it?
Well, fortunately for me and anyone else who's interested in the subject, there's a wealth of photographic evidence. There's a lot of contemporary photographs of these men and of the jungles at the time. So I was able to go into the archives in the city and the National Archives and sort of comb through, and so you're able to see actually where they lived and what their little shanty towns looked like and the structures that they were sleeping in, as well as the food lineups and the different sort of community projects that were aimed to try and help them.
Yeah.
So,
and the influences
exactly
from the church.
First United.
Yeah. I found it really interesting when you say jungle. It's meaning shanty camp.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that's happening in Vancouver still, and there's still that struggle for housing. And when I read these stories and I see that the skilled soldiers from the First Great War, they had much more sophisticated buildings.
Right.
And you really broke it down into these details. I mean, it's like a reference book.
Yeah.
I really appreciated all the researched knowledge that you gave me.
Well, it's a story where unfortunately we don't have the names or the stories of the actual men who lived in these jungles. Right. So, anything that we can learn about them and sort of being able to discern, like, oh, these men were soldiers, or they were very able-bodied and very able to work, but there was no work for them. It kind of gives them a bit more of a narrative that they might not otherwise have.
Okay. So there's also photos that inspire the imagination all throughout these stories. And Lanny Russworm wrote one called The Red Shadow. There's too many to talk about in our 6 minutes today. But let's just give a nod to John Belshaw and how he's kind of got the momentum going on this historical journey of pages of Vancouver's history. He's did the first book.
Yeah, I see it sort of as the sequel to Vancouver Noir, which he put together a few years ago. And that's filled with all sorts of gritty crime scene photos, and you can see the mid-century Vancouver sort of coming to age. And this is a continuation from a whole lot of different perspectives.
Right. Well, stories can teach, and stories are meant to be told and read, and you can find them all here in Vancouver Confidential. I also find them very helpful so that we can educate our younger generations not to be repeating mistakes. And thank you both for joining me today on Access TV. And we'll look forward to your next publication. Jason Vanderhill and Stevie Wilson.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Vancouver Confidential can be found at Anvil Press.
Next up, we're going to watch a trailer of a film that's in production called Room 6. It's sort of a gritty, cautionary tale. And the filmmaker, Andy Fiore, is a recent recipient for the Courage to Come Back Award. Here he is in conversation with Morgan Provo about his film.
Maybe you could just save up some money. Maybe we could both get clean. Maybe we could get out of here.
It's raining, it's pouring.
I just need a fix and I'll be okay.
Junkies are snoring.
I got infected. I have HIV.
Went to bed with a doped up head.
Yeah, well maybe I don't give a shit.
Won't get up in the morning.
Hi This is Morgan Provo coming to you from Access TV. Today I'm here with Andy Fiore, a documentary filmmaker. Today we're going to be talking about your recent foray into drama. So first question, I guess, Andy, is why is the film called Room 6?
Thank you for inviting me today, Morgan. The movie Room 6 is called, actually an interesting story. We started off with Room 6. It was initially a project that was going to be a feature-length film. And my partner and I wrote a screenplay that was about 120 pages long, and we had every design. We wanted to make the feature film. What eventually did happen was we had some trouble in production, and we didn't actually end up filming the whole thing. Initially, it was called Wired, and Wired referring to someone that's wired on drugs, whether it be meth. In this case, it's heroin addiction, and because it changed so much, and most of what we did film was inside the room itself. We decided to call it Room 6. And it made sense to us because, for example, with me, when I was an active user of heroin, my whole life revolved around one room. In fact, one table. A table beside a cot, a mattress. And my whole universe was that table. And the drugs that were on the table, the needles, so that's why we called it Room 6.
Okay, interesting. And so recently you've been introduced into a film festival, the Victoria Film Festival, if I'm correct. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So when we finished the film, it was 35 minutes long, and I did some research. I was really disappointed because I wanted it to be a feature film. I wanted to make a debut with this story, which was connected to me. Didn't work out that way, but apparently today the thing to do, well, it's always been the thing to do, is to go to festivals. So what we did, we decided we were too late for the Vancouver Film Festival, so we just made the deadline for the Victoria one, and we're going to hear from them December 1st, which is about 3 weeks away.
Great, congratulations.
Thank you. We also decided to submit it to the Canada International Film Festival, which takes place in February, I believe, and that I think the date for that is February 20.
Okay.
So that we have 2 festivals. So,
great.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I guess another thing that I'd like to touch on, I guess for the majority of people, their only real contact with addiction is what they see on TV or they read in newspapers. Basically, everybody's kind of at arm's length with it. How important was it to show like the humanity of your characters as opposed to just an addiction?
That's a really good question, Morgan. I think that one of the things that I've learned through the work that I've been doing, documentaries about the downtown east side, is that compassion is a very, very important thing to have. A lot of the times when I'm down there filming or have been down there filming, especially when I interview sex trade workers, I can't, how many times a car would drive by and hurl insults at the women. And this is pure ignorance. A lot of people think that they're throwaway people, that they're garbage and they're scum and Skid Row and all of that. The reality is a lot more, it's just different. The reality is that these are abused people for the most part, that have been treated really badly by sometimes their own family. And they don't have any hope many times. They don't know who to turn to, so a lot of them become rocks, and they just live really isolated lives because they don't trust and they don't know love, and that's the real truth of it. So I think what we need to do, and the reason we made Room 6 was we needed to tell the stories that are not being told, and one of them is the 2 characters in Room 6. One is a schizophrenic junkie thief. So he has schizophrenia, he's also a heroin addict, and the way he supports his habit is by stealing. And his partner in crime is a sex trade worker. So when have you last seen a film about these kinds of characters? I've never.
I think it's a very important social commentary.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good. I guess the last thing that we'd like to say is if you're looking for any more information on this film, you can go to it's room6film.blogspot.ca. Is that correct?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, perfect. And thank you very much for coming today.
My pleasure.
And for Access TV, this has been Morgan Provo.
Wow, it's amazing how addiction can really shrink your world into a room or a table. thanks to Andy Fiore. His first docudrama, Room 6, is slated to be released next year.
And now Hall of Famer Olympian Howard Kelsey and his many great accomplishments are highlighted in this Unsung Hero segment by Robay Hardnett.
This is Access TV, and I'm your host, Robay Hardnett, with our segment called Unsung Hero. And I have a special guest and a friend by the name of Mr. Howard Kelsey. I always like to address my special friends as Mr., no matter what. So how you doing today?
Thank you, but I don't need the Mr. Robay.
Well, you know, it's kind of a kindred spirit thing, right?
Thank you.
Yes. So everything's okay?
Everything's fantastic.
Well, you know what I want to do? I want to start with, just to give a little bit of history to my clients, or not clients, but my viewers out there. I want them to know who we're talking with today. We have with us today one of Canada's basketball great, Howard Kelsey. Howard is a two-time Canadian Olympian in 1980 and 84 and stand as one of the only two native British Columbian basketball players for men to represent Canada in 2 Olympic Games. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
That, you know, that's a mouthful, and that's a very powerful thing. As a matter of fact, one of the things when I was doing that research is there's this very historic picture that shows Charles Barkley while you're receiving the medal.
He's on the bronze medal podium, which very rarely happens with USA basketball.
Exactly. And he's in awe looking at you in that picture.
And
Tell us a bit about that.
Well, we're on the gold medal podium.
Yes.
And never has Canada in men's basketball been on a gold medal podium for a world championship. So in 1983, it was Charles Barkley, it was Karl Malone, it was Johnny Dawkins, to name a few.
Wow.
And we beat them in the semifinal game. And then we beat Yugoslavia with Drazen Petrovic and Vlade Divac.
Whoa.
Both NBA Hall of Famers.
Absolutely.
And so we're standing on the gold medal podium, which would be place number 1. And then you're flanked with place 2 and place 3, which is the silver and the bronze. And on the bronze is Barkley, and he goes, "Oh, that's cool. I've never seen a gold medal. Let me see."
Right.
And he looks up, and then I lean down and go, "Well, here."
I know. It's
such
a cool
picture. It's an iconic, and I've got my Canada number 4, so it's kind of says it all, and it's been a very cool picture to keep.
Yes. And you played with other greats like Michael Jordan,
Played against
Isaiah.
Michael Jordan, played against Isaiah. I actually played against Isaiah when he was a high school senior. Never has a high school senior been brought onto the U.S. national team. Both Isaiah, who was going to Indiana for Bobby Knight, was coming out of Chicago High School going to Indiana, and Ralph Sampson, who was 7'4" in high school, and he could dunk it from the stand.
Right.
So we met those two in high school going, ooh, this is going to be a handful. So Patrick Ewing, again, Karl Malone, Barkley, many names. And whenever you play against the U.S. national team, basically, they are future NBA Hall of Famers.
Right, right. And the fact that Barkley now is on television is even more...
All the time. And he actually remembers very well playing us and losing by over 26.
Yes. I mean, that's pretty amazing. One other thing that you hold that I want to talk about is, do you still hold the all-time highest BC high school career scoring average of 37.5?
I do for average, for career. Pasha Baines has scored more points because he played 3 years.
Yeah.
But for career, I only played 2, and my average would be higher. But again, Pasha is the one that has the most points all time accumulated. But if you went for 11th and 12th grade, yes, I still do.
Wow, that's fantastic. So let's kind of speed up to date. You know, we've talked about the history, but you've done so much more. As great as that, and even greater, in my opinion. That's why we have you on today. Let's talk about Kids Beach. And not only that, let's talk about what you are doing in Mexico, too, because that's equally as exciting.
Well, I have to give the credit to our foundation, which is the Canada One Foundation. That would be my brother, Doug, who is currently COO of TransLink, which you would read about regularly in the papers.
Right.
The late Randy Sung, who unfortunately passed away in a hockey game at the age of 53, but he's the founder with us. Ron Putzi, Tony Gallagher, Jaggy Bogle, and Barry McDonald. We formed the Canada One Foundation. So we picked things that were close to our heart. First, high school basketball. We thought we need to give back.
Right.
So we've given away over $1.5 million into high school basketball, boys and girls, and junior high school, disabled, mentally challenged, all categories of of athletes for the last 15 years. And then out of that grew another one saying, well, what else do we like? Well, we like Kits Beach. That's something that's been close to us. We should give something back. So the first thing we did is Ron Putzi and myself went to the park board and city council and said, we need to upgrade Kits Beach. There's been issues down there. There's been a lot of dissension down there. There's been a lot of bad actors down there. We're willing to do the courts. And in the end, to expedite things, we just said, okay, we'll pay for these. So Ron and I actually paid personally and used the foundation and put it together. And so in 2007, we upgraded the 2 courts, cleaned up, helped to clean up the neighborhood. And you know from being down there, it's been very successful. That prompted Kits Fest. Then the next one we focused on when we went to our affiliates in tennis and said, your courts look pretty ratty too. How'd you like to get them fixed? So short answer is, a year ago last fall, we were able to get the 10 tennis courts at Kits Beach completely renovated. That was a community effort. Many major players were in that, including the Parks Board City Council, the Kits Beach Tennis Association. Short answer, those courts are now done. Then we donated some palm trees, and our next interest was
that to give it that
just give it that Southern California tropical feel. I'm a big guy on the sun and tropics, so I would like to look out at the sunset through palm trees on Kits Beach. So we personally funded those ones, and then the next one, which I think you'd probably like the best, is we think it's time that the showboat be upgraded.
I remember
it's an unbelievable venue, but it probably needs an upgrade. So we're committed with other factors, and we would like to see a sound system, seating upgraded, and it become an iconic theater that is not for profit and that it serves the community. So up-and-coming actors, up-and-coming artists, that would be a great venue for them. We've got great support from the city on that. That's probably a 5-year project because it's probably going to take about $2 million to do that, but we're committed to doing that.
Excellent. Well, you've certainly run my bell on that because, you know, I'm all about the entertainment and the youth and the talent. So I'm with you on that. So if anything that we can do to support that.
We'll all be in this. We have to wait this Saturday till the election because they're either returning city councilors or new city councilors. We have to wait to see who's the government in charge. But once we know that, which is only a week away, then we'll go back. They know us. All the parties know who we are, and we work with all of them. Short answer is, I mean, whatever's going to be good for the community. We've had a groundswell now of people coming to help us. In the beginning, I think people were a bit skeptical that we'd put our money where our mouth was, but I think it showed that it will happen.
Well, again, I'm so glad you came out and spent some time with me today. This will not be the last time, and we'll talk more. We have a lot to go on. This is Robé Hardnett with Access TV.
I didn't care about pain. My blisters were stigmata. I was their Jesus. I bled for them so that we could have life.
Was a boy in California who in 2008 asked a boy in his junior high to be his Valentine, and that boy brought a gun to school and shot him in the head, killing him. But When Everything Goes in Movies is not a true crime novel. It's very much so a work of fiction. Really, it's a story, a fast-paced, campy story about modern-day youth and first love.
I was flipping through a magazine, waiting for Angela at the graveyard gate, giant white platforms. They made me look like Baby Spice and Michael Allen's love child. I had a lollipop and a syringe filled with Drano, tangled in laces. When Angela showed up, she thought...
I don't know where all the violence is coming from. I think it's a reality that gender non-conforming or effeminate boys face in small towns. I mean, I grew up in Winnipeg and Thompson, and Winnipeg's a city and Thompson's a small town. And I faced my fair share of discrimination, never to the extent of Larry or some people that I've heard of. But I mean, obviously it is pretty brutal in certain parts of the world where kids are getting murdered for asking someone to be the Valentine.
I pushed him. I pushed him harder than I thought I could without breaking a nail. He seemed surprised when I knocked him to the ground, but quickly recovered and jumped back up. I've always wondered what it would feel like to punch a girl, he said, swinging at me. I flinched, protecting my face, and he missed. But I lost my balance on the platforms and fell onto a grave. Let's just get out of here.
It's for young adults, yeah, so I hope they read it. I hope it gives them confidence. I hope it helps them feel like they're not alone and that it's okay to be fabulous. Because I think, you know, a lot of young kids who like to dress up and experiment with their gender, they feel a lot of shame about it. So I hope that when everything feels like the movies can make them proud. Because Jude, you know, he may die, but he's fucking fabulous. He lived. He was full of light. He was full of energy. He will be remembered, you know, as will Larry, who inspired him. So I hope that motivates kids to be themselves.
I jumped up and spat in his face as if it had been choreographed. I did my own stunts. Dude, Kenny said to Matt, disgusted, you're totally gonna get pink eye. Yeah, Colin laughed. Pink triangle eye. I almost laughed too, not just because Colin had said something witty for the first time in his life, but because I was nervous. I didn't usually fight back, aside from blowing kisses, and something told me I was about to pay for it. Matt's skateboard came for my head before I could stop. He kept hitting me even when I was down.
Does it get better? I don't think it gets better. I think what gets better is your ability to be happy. You get better. The world doesn't necessarily get better, but you become stronger, you become more confident in your skin, you know yourself more.
When I came to, the park was empty and the blood was pooling in my nostrils. I told myself it was a performance and I was up for an award. It was up for all of them. I tried to stand to make my acceptance speech but got dizzy and fell back down. When I opened my eyes again, I thought I had died and gone to heaven because Luke was looking down at me.
Well, safety is an illusion. It's like comfort is an illusion. Like, what does that even mean? Nothing is permanent. Nothing's forever. Everything can be taken away. The world, our lives are ephemeral. So, if you're always worried about being safe and doing the right thing, then you know, you're kind of living a shallow existence. You have to be brave and you have to put yourself out there and you have to be willing to put your neck on the line. I mean, God help any kid that has to face what Larry faces, but I don't think that that's the case for most of us. And so if everyone stood up and said, this is who I am and I'm not apologizing, then everyone would stop asking us to say sorry.
Shit, as Ollie said as he gave me his hand and pulled me up. I couldn't believe I was touching him. The shock gave my heart back its beat. He let me lean on him as we walked out of the graveyard onto the abandoned street. I got blood all over his shirt. The hospital was only a couple blocks away, but I was staggering. I acted like I couldn't hold my head up, just so that I could lean on his shoulder.
I'm going to adapt it into a screenplay, hopefully, and I just released a song called Like a Movie Star, which is an accompaniment to the book, and proceeds will be benefiting Out in Schools, which is a program that goes to BC schools and educates youth on homophobia and transphobia. It's available in all bookstores, Chapters, Amazon. But if you're in Vancouver or any city in Canada, support your local queer bookstore. In Toronto, it's Glad Day Bookshop, and in Vancouver, it's Little Sisters.
All right.
Whitehead. I'm a Plains Cree from Saskatchewan, and I did a lot of my part of my university schooling in University of Regina. Got a Bachelor of Arts, Indian Art, and then I went on to Nova Scotia. I got a Bachelor of Fine Art from there in Halifax, and now I live in Vancouver. I paint. I work in schools, and but most of it is my own work. My inspirations started early on in my life. My mother, I guess, would be my first inspiration. She used to do these braided rugs with colorful cloth that she cut into strips, And then I used to play around with all this color around on the floor. And there was aunties and grandmother that used to do beadwork, colorful beadwork and leather work, and there was always somebody doing something. Well, this year will be my 24th year in Vancouver. So originally I was just going to live here a few years, but I'm still here. So, but I've been doing a lot of public art in Vancouver, and like I said, I work in. I'm an artist in residence for the Vancouver School Board, and then I go to I do a lot of work in the Valley, in a lot of the other schools. I've been doing this for probably roughly since 2000. I worked on a mosaic project back then, I think 2000, 2001. And so this is kind of influence from that, like part of it, right? As well as my mother's colorful rugs. But the mosaics, I kind of call it like my mosaic style. It's just, I think there's a lot of other elements too, like Northern Lights are influence. The powwow dancers from the prairies are another big influence. Then you can see the colors, why I choose all the bright colors around people. If you think about it, right, the drum, right, it's in our culture, it's the heartbeat of the mother. When you're inside the womb, you hear this beat like a drum.
We have an interdisciplinary arts program, so all sorts of art students can come through and bring their personhood and whatever art medium they work in and work with that and sort of integrate theology and the arts together.
And I think Aisha is going to sing a song of remembrance that she composed herself. And we are going to remember our elders that defended our freedom that we enjoy today.
Remember how we used to get along. People write so many meaningful songs, but usually they don't understand how it feels for the families to have to wait for him or her to get back from the war.